Hey everyone, thank you so much for clicking on this video. It's incredibly exciting. As you can see, I'm just about to finish editing the interview that I got to do with Mbali, the new host of Snakes in the City. So in this interview, we're going to learn a little bit more about her, as well as what we can expect in the new season of the show, now available on National Geographic and Disney+. First, I just have to say, and my wife said I had to tell you this, because we were both at the National Geographic, the Snakes in the City launch event in Joburg. And so we got to see you guys on stage, and we watched the first episode, and my wife is just the biggest fan. She thinks you are absolutely awesome.
Man, please tell your wife I said thank you, and she's killing me with goosebumps right now. Really appreciate it, guys.
So Mbali, let's just jump straight into the very first question. We see in episode 1 of the new season that you have always looked at snakes from a point of view of education because of the cultural background and everything like that. So can you just tell those of us who haven't watched the first episode yet exactly what your journey with snakes has been like?
My journey with snakes has been a crazy one because at first, not very long ago, I was scared of snakes. And I think it was involuntary. It was because of everything that I was taught growing up, that snakes are evil, they are a sign of, witchcraft, and they are like a bad omen. Our eyes should never connect with the snakes because if they do, you're gonna die. You cannot be friends with snakes. It's even in our Bible. My granny was actually a great Christian believer, and she was also my Sunday school teacher. So you can just already imagine if she could like teach me how to be, and also a church be the one instilling all of these things, and which didn't leave out the snake stuff. So for many years, I was able to love a lot of animals, but never snakes. If I saw one, it led for me to freak out because of everything that I had been told. Um, so back in 2012, when I was desperate for a break because I was studying, and you know what studying does to one. Sometimes you just need to, just catch a breather. My sister found out that there was a way for me to volunteer at some facility. And I thought it was just going to be like a walk in the park. One thing that was kept a secret was that I would also have to learn about snakes and interpret their behaviors to visitors of the facility, and also try my best to actually speak from the snake's point of view. I'm scared of snakes. I knew nothing about them. How do I even begin to convince somebody to, understand them, respect them, and do their part in conserving them? So in 2012, that's when it's all changed, when I met a very cool person who is my best friend now, Carl Schlams, who taught me everything that I needed to know about snakes. He even made me like my first snake catching equipment from scratch. Didn't buy me, but made me my very own. So realizing that snakes are, misinterpreted like myself sometimes. And it's through the snakes that I've been called evil or a witch, because it's very rare for like an African person, especially if I can say it that way, to be quite relaxed around snakes, and to even want to invest their time in teaching about snakes' behaviors and their important roles in our ecosystem. So when I handled my first snake, I think that's when I actually fell in love with them. It wasn't the first time, it was the second attempt that I gave, because the first time I can't remember what it felt like. I had to do it the second time around to actually register that they were silky and smooth and.
So, just like yourself, I'm actually from Durban. I moved up to Joburg rather recently. So I can completely understand where you're coming from in regards to the cultural background regarding snakes. One of my closest friends growing up in high school, he came from a Zulu cultural background as well. Hated them. Refused to even watch movies with them in.
That's what we taught.
Exactly. So I completely understand that. So then moving on from that, because now you've gained your love of snakes and everything, how did that translate into you actually becoming one of the hosts of Snake in the City?
Okay, so I think when you volunteer, that's when, your patience get tested. Not like in terms of how well you can do a job, but how dedicated you are to the task or tasks that you've been given. So when my friend actually, he is a snake catcher himself, He's great at reptiles and creating awareness around them. He does everything environmental. And he actually got a call from somebody from Earth Touch to say they were looking for like a new talent, preferably somebody young, somebody whom is talkative, somebody who doesn't mind sharing information about snakes and who does that with like excitement, and somebody whom is keen to learn new things that have got to do with like snake handling and what's not. And he said he couldn't have thought of a better person than myself. And when he mentioned the snakes in the city, I was like, the Net Geo snakes in the city? And he said, yes, Mbali. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you think I can do this? Because I always have to ask him for, honest opinion. He's one person I can trust. And he said, yeah, I think this is what you should be doing. And yeah, hearing Net Geo, I think that was one thing that drove me crazy more than just knowing that I'm going to be learning from, Siouxsie and Simon. Because Net Geo, I think I love Net Geo not because it's a TV channel, but for the fact that they are great at actually promoting green education and also, coming up with ways of making people from all walks of life to understand whatever stories they'd be trying to put out, and also advocating for animals and not just turning a blind eye on what the society thinks of them, but they always willing to actually take it to the next step. And that's what I'm about, because if conservation doesn't actually allow for people to learn new things through storytelling, what is conservation's purpose then?
Cool. So I know in 2020 I filmed a bunch of different documentary movies and series and shows, and one of the primary animals we focused on, which is actually one of my favorite snakes of all time, is the Cape Cobra. Now I understand. Yeah, they're great animals. I love them. Cape Cobra is a fantastic snake. So I just want to know from your side, were there any rather difficulties that you had to face when it comes to also interacting with snakes with the filming crew? Because I remember, the photographers and the cinematographers like myself, the videographer, wants to get the best possible shot of the snake. Now, of course, you're trying to capture the snake as well. Is there ever a moment where the two of you clash, or necessarily it just makes things a little bit more difficult when there are cinematographers or videographers around?
Okay, so without giving much of the story away, I think there were glitches when I was still, because I had to shadow first, just like in any other job. When I began to be like more hands-on, I didn't actually understand why I should, when I'm talking about a snake, like have it like this and try to keep it as still as possible. To me, it was just a case of catching and talking about the snake and releasing. But what are you showing the audience if you are not like holding it for like 1, 2, 3 seconds and then release the snake? That was like my biggest challenge. But having a crew that doesn't only treat you as a host, but they treat you as a brand. They told me, Mbali, listen, it's very amazing that you are getting this opportunity to tell us about the snakes, but think about the viewer at home. They cannot see through your eyes, so that's why you've got to actually hold it for like a couple of seconds so we can get like a good profile of the animal, so that if they get to see one in the future in their homes, they can actually, put the pieces together and make it was the one that Mbali caught the last time on the season.
Now, I have to say, I agree with you there, because a lot of the things that people don't realize about reality TV, or rather real-time TV, which is what Snakes in the City is that you are yourself, but you're a personification of yourself, because you've got to make sure that what you are doing is accessible to the audience at home. So much like you're saying, like, you want to put the snake away, but you've got to make sure that you're facing the camera in a specific way, you're putting the snake down in a specific way. So that's just great to hear from you, that you had to learn through all of that, which is great. Moving on from that, I just need to ask you another question. Now, my favorite snake is the Cape Cobra. What is your favorite snake?
I've got a few favorites for different reasons. But one that stands out the most, I'm going to say, it's not from South Africa though.
Okay.
It's, it's already ball python or royal python. It was the first snake I got to touch. So that snake for me is very special because it actually got me to change my diction and, my mentality around snakes in general. It won my heart, so it will always be special. And then my other favorites would be a spotted bush snake because we get to see them a lot in like at home. They're not venomous and it's a nightmare to catch them. Maybe I had to learn the hard way. And then I also I'm fascinated by the poem slang. Number one, because a lot of Debonites, especially if they are first English speaking, sometimes they make a mistake to call it a boom slang, which is always a way to break the ice. Because whenever you have to help a person pronounce their name correctly, you can't just leave them with the name only. You've got to share the facts. So I love anything that becomes like a draw card when it comes to preaching conservation. Another reason why I love the poem slang is the fact that they can confuse you. Sometimes they are geez, they can be like butterflies. At first they look like a worm, or should I say caterpillar? And then later they've got wings. So the poem slangs, when they are juvenile, gosh, they look like they're wearing hot eye makeup with that yellow, that brown, that white. And then as they grow older, if it's a male, it's so crazy that in the animal kingdom, in most cases, the males get all the good looks. Uh, so the males are usually, they can be green with blackish lines in between the scales, but you also get some males being brown. But when it comes to females, it's a given that adult female poem slangs are always going to be brown. And they have this amazing eye, hey, that looks yellowish in color. I just love their eyes. There's just something about their eyes. And they've got such good vision as well. It's what can I use as an example? Those 360 cameras that they've installed everywhere now. The eye works more or less the same. They can actually see from a wider range than other snakes. And then I also love the vine snakes. It's in how they move for me. So if snakes are already scared of us, it just makes more sense that they want to blend in with the trees, which is where they actually hunt mostly because they want to catch birds. And chances are, because they're scared of you, they make it easy for you not to actually, approach them because they're just going to move like a twig also. So they just look like part of one big tree. And then I think my last favorite, can I say a red-lipped herald?
Okay.
And that's because I understand that when you are educating people about snakes, you have got to give the most factual information that you can ever think of. So you don't want for a person to freak out when they see a herald because they're not lethal, but you also have to do them the justice by explaining to the person that the herald snake may not be deadly, but they do have very mild venom, which if you get bitten by one, it depends on every individual. If you are one of those people who respond, you know, a funny way when it comes to stings and bites, chances are if there's going to be any symptoms at all, it's not going to be worse than a migraine. But if you're one of those people who are oblivious about what has beaten them, like myself, chances are you're not even going to feel a migraine. There's not going to be a headache. You'll just know you got beaten by a herald and that's it. And I just like the fact that for people who are scared of frogs, they like the snake you wanna welcome into your house or your yard because they're going to take care of those frogs for you.
So okay, so you've interacted with a bunch of different snakes. I've just got to ask. We both know that Durban is full of snakes. That's exactly why the show is filmed there. I remember once even seeing a desert horned adder, which literally is supposed to exist in the Kalahari deserts or other arid regions, and somehow I came across one in Durban. So while filming the show, what was probably the most unique or weirdest snake that you saw?
I'm going to be honest with you, it wasn't weird, it was interesting because I'd never seen one in the wild. I've, like you've said, I've been exposed to quite a bunch of different snakes, but most of them were captive. which is amazing in a way. But the one fascinating capture that we did that I still remember like vividly was when we caught when I got to see like a spitting cobra in person. I'm not gonna disclose which one because I want you guys to watch the show. Okay. It's there's just something about snakes when they are in nature. They get to display the actual personalities that we should be taught about, that we should be learning about. Unlike when you see a snake in a facility, because they may not be tame 100%, but they kind of get used to like a particular routine. So yeah, it's like it doesn't beat the wild.
Cool. And Mbali, honestly, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Again, my wife and I, we love you. We truly believe you've breathed like fresh breath into the show, and we've both loved the show. We watched a bunch of the older episodes before coming and watching the the launch in Joburg. So honestly, we're so excited for the rest of the season to come out here on National Geographic in South Africa. We're very excited. And Mbali, you're amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Thank you so much for the love, and hopefully our paths are going to cross again in the foreseeable future. And thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.